Let's go live. We just had National Cabinet and news conference is happening now with the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
In a very collegiate and collaborative meeting where we work together as a Commonwealth with states and territories, and today as well we added local government in the national interest. Today all First Ministers, in recognition of our commitment for constitutional recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as Australia's first peoples, and also with a voice to Parliament being enshrined in our Constitution, recommitted and signed up to a statement of intent to secure a successful referendum in the second half of this year. On health reform, the National Cabinet has agreed that this is the first priority issue for 2023. We will meet again in late April and consider further measures on top of what we already have been doing as a National Cabinet, and the work that different jurisdictions are doing along with the Commonwealth, including noting the $100 million investment in primary care pilots program that we have begun to roll out, and the urgent care clinics that will be up and running by the end of this year. We also noted an update by the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Authority on their work being undertaken by Robin Kruk, looking at health professionals and how we can get more efficiency in the system. We all understand the challenge that is there for improving our primary healthcare networks, how that interacts with the hospital system, and there's absolutely a commitment to work on policy outcomes as the starting point. What is the right policy? What is the right structure? Rather than looking simply at allocation of funds. We know that the key going forward is to better integrate the systems so that patients are what it is all about. Better health care, and we know that the earlier the care is provided, the cheaper that care will be as well. And that is a common position which we have, and we'll be prioritising that throughout 2023, again with the next meeting being in late April. Today we received the Strengthening Medicare Task Force report that has within it really practical measures going forward as well. On energy, the First Minister's noted the recent agreements that have been rolled out with the Rewiring the Nation program of the Commonwealth, a $20 billion commitment we're rolling out in cooperation with state and territory governments. We know that part of the key to fixing the energy system is fixing the energy grid, bringing it into the 21st century. And that's what the announcements that we've already made in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, and other announcements are coming as well. All about, for example, snowy hydro. Great idea, but nice if you plug it into the grid. So is a starting point as well. In addition to that, the Treasurers will be meeting next week, just finalising the details of the National Energy Bill Relief Plan. This isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all because different states and territories have different systems and starting points therefore as well. We heard from Pat Turner, the lead convener of the Coalition of Peaks, came to talk to us about closing the gap. It was a really constructive discussion. All of the state and territory jurisdictions agreed that Pat Turner would address their cabinets respectively around the country this year to talk about whole of government at the state and territory level responses to closing the gap in service provision. Also as well, we agreed to re-sign the national agreement that was signed in 2020. Any updates that are required as well, we'll report back on that. Following the tragic events in Queensland that we saw with the murder of the police officers, We heard from Premier Palaszczuk firstly about the circumstances there, but we also, as a result of a discussion that we held last night, agreed to invite the Director General of ASIO, Mike Burgess, along to talk about the rise of right-wing extremism, in particular the so-called sovereign citizens and other issues as well. And we had a high-level national security briefing on that for the Premier and Chief Ministers. I reiterate that the Commonwealth will always make available our senior national security advisors to state and territory governments to deal with the challenges that are there of keeping people safe and protecting our internal security issues as well right around the country. It's quite clear that we need to do better in cooperation between jurisdictions when it comes to firearms. That was part of the issue that's been identified in Queensland, and we agreed that we'd report back by the middle of the year through the Attorney-General's Ministerial Council on the options to implement a national firearms register, and it's agreed that that would be a necessary measure. We heard from the President of the Australian Local Government Association, Councillor Linda Scott, on the priorities for local government, in particular the challenges that have arisen because of natural disasters that we've seen in recent times. Tragically, too many of them in too many places around the country. And National Cabinet reaffirmed we value the work that local government is doing on the ground there. We also had a discussion about housing and First Ministers discussing the National Housing Accord that's been agreed to by the Commonwealth, state and territory governments, the Master Builders Association and other organisations, including how we mobilise funding, including of superannuation funds, into the supply of housing. We all know that supply is something that needs to be addressed. In addition, it's noted the improvements that are being made and will continue to need to be done on issues such as affordable and social housing as well as emergency housing. National Cabinet was very constructive. We got a lot done today in a relatively short period of time, and it is symptomatic, I think, of the way that we have functioned together as a National Cabinet, making sure that states and territories have been prepared to put aside their own interests in terms of clearly advocating for their states and territories, but also how can we get better outcomes as a nation. And I really appreciate and I want to acknowledge the work and the cooperative nature of state and territories.